So for the first time in 155 years, there was no Scottish Games put on by the Caledonian Club. Last year, we had a modified outdoor event with no buildings being used. We limited it voluntarily to 10,000 people a day, and we could have sold more tickets both days. We sold out a week before the games. This year, it's open again. We'll be using the grandstand, all the buildings with vendors, and we'd like you to come along. If you go to our website, which is thescottishgames.com, you can buy tickets. It'll send you to the Fairgrounds website. And by the way, the Fairgrounds is non-cash. Now, the tickets are e-tickets, which you can show on your phone, or you can print out if you're more comfortable. The parking pass, you'll get a digital link to it, but you have to print that out and put it on your dashboard. If you want to buy a bottle of water, if you want to buy a Scottish beer, if you want to buy a kilt, you're going to have to use a credit card. I'm sorry, our vendors will take cash as well. So this will be our 156th games, and I hope we can see a lot of you out there. The other thing to touch on real quickly is Gary mentioned the Sister City clubs. Pleasanton twinned with a city in Perthshire called Blairgowrie over 20 years ago. And a few years after that, we found out that Blairgowrie was also twinned with Fergus, just outside Toronto in Ontario. The common element is so we became whatever you call a three-way twinning. Now, we're affectionately known as the Alphabet Club. Pleasanton, Blairgowrie, Fergus, Sister City organization. We have the biggest event is the Burning Supper celebration and Marriott. If you can get the word out, we'd love to see you there. So,
yeah, you ready for the video?
thank you very much.
The annual Scottish Highland Games wrapped up this weekend at the Pleasanton Fairgrounds. KPIX5's John Ramos shows us its celebration of proud people with the strength to endure.
This gathering of the clans is one of the oldest events in the Bay Area, celebrating its 154th year, and it is said to be the largest of its kind in the world. Scotland has had to fight off one invader after another through most of its history, so it's not surprising that much of its culture centers around the art of war. From archery to swordplay to what's known simply as a brawl, where heavily armored combatants hack at each other with swords for about 30 seconds until exhausted.
Enemies would come together, they'd clash, and then they'd seem to withdraw and then come back together.
Is that just because everybody was so tired?
That could be part of it.
Even the games themselves are strength competitions using ancient weapons like these 22-pound heavy hammers. But for professional competitor Spencer Tyler, it's all in good fun.
It's always been competing of some sort as long as I can remember, and this is a way for me not to weigh 900 pounds and sit on the couch all day.
At Pleasanton, the women compete as well, throwing the heavy stones that inspired the modern shot put. And even though he carries a traditional dagger in his stocking, event organizer Floyd Busby says it's not all about warfare.
Well, yes, I mean, we certainly depict that, but that doesn't mean we're a warlike people. We're very soft at heart also.
That's true. It's not all about fighting. There are traditional foods like meat pies and a deep-fried object known as a Scotch egg. There is music from 28 different drum and bagpipe groups, and a folk dance competition where young women dance around, well, swords again. But where else can young commoners have a private audience with Mary, Queen of Scots? And when the drums of Scottish tribal music begin pounding, it's almost impossible to sit still.
The heartbeat that goes from the drums and all the other instruments. We come alive 1 weekend a year for this. It's wonderful. Thank you.
The Scottish culture dates back to before the Romans, who had the good sense to leave those wild men alone. They quickly learned the folly of messing with a man in a skirt. In Pleasanton, John Ramos, KPIX 5.
About 25,000 people attended this year's games. Nearly 700 drummers and bagpipers closed out the festivities with a rendition of Amazing Grace. The annual Scottish Highland Games wrapped up this weekend at the Pleasanton Fairgrounds. KPI.
Sorry.
Well, we do have a lot of, and there's nothing like the feeling being in the grandstand. And like one time we had 1,100 bagpipes. I mean, it's September 3rd and 4th, Labor Day weekend. So I hope you can make it. Get your tickets ahead of time. Okay, next our inspirational. Ready? Yeah. All right. So I know ladies, you the real thing. Highly successful team.
So y'all get inspiration from different folks. I've read many books about times in history where people have overcome struggle of oppression. One book I read is based on the true story of the forgotten hero. Beneath the Scarlet Sky. It's the triumphant epic tale of one young man's incredible courage and resilience during one of history's darkest hours. We are very fortunate to live in a place and time in history where we do not have to worry about such things. We can focus our time and efforts on helping the less fortunate. Today, I find inspiration in the people around me. I have been so lucky to be surrounded by many great people throughout my life and have been amazing role models. These are some of the people that have given me inspiration. Let's start with my family. My great aunt and uncle, Ruby and Faye, always showed me love, kindness, and acceptance of others. They were wonderful parents and down-to-earth people, and I'm fortunate to have had them as role models, as they taught me to always be kind to others. I've had interesting jobs as a young adult and learned entrepreneurship from the many people I've worked for. I have always done my best to learn as much as possible from the people around me. Working for an insurance company in San Francisco, I worked directly for the founder and watched how he formed his company, hired ambitious people to work for him and grow the company. Another very interesting job was working for the engineering firm that was representing the Bay Bridge. I worked for Wahid Tadros at California Engineering. I got to know his parents and heard the story of how they moved from Egypt and had to go back to school to get their American degree after having successful careers in engineering and medicine in Egypt. And I saw how immigrants become hugely successful in America. That's an inspiration. As I got to know Wahid, he told me how he started at UC Berkeley at the age of 16 and then followed in his father's footsteps to run the company. I saw how his staff and employees all looked up to him and admired the way he conducted his business. And it was a wonderful opportunity to be surrounded by intelligent, hardworking people. As I longed for a career that allowed me to have more flexibility with my time and in control of my income, I left my job in accounting at California Engineering and started in real estate. I had the pleasure of working for Bob Shapiro, and I saw how he always puts others first, and he was giving of his time. He was always there to answer my questions and help me grow as an agent, and this experience helped put me on the fast track to success. Being a part of Keller Williams has given me the tools to build my own company. A statement that the founder, Gary Keller, said that really has stuck with me is if you're the smartest person in the room, you're really dumb. What I learned from that statement is that we should always surround ourselves with smart, driven people that we can learn from and get new ideas. Thanks to Bob and Joy Shapiro, I am here at Rotary, surrounded by many such people. Another inspirational moment was being part of the Spirit Run last year. I saw how our committee, Brad, Gino, Larry, Jim, Marjorie, worked diligently to raise money and put on the event, and help put on the events. And that would allow us to get back to our community. I've also witnessed how the Harringtons have worked so hard with the WASH program to provide a safe, healthier learning environment, reduce disease caused by contaminated water, provide toilet facilities, and improve school attendance. I am very inspired by how Randy Brown has done so much to raise money for Goodness Village. I saw how he and his wife Lisa went above and beyond to put on a fabulous event, and were able to draw so many people to attend and donate. I recently volunteered to be part of the wheelchair committee. and was so impressed to see the excitement that Bill Wheeler, Nick Stafford, Larry Annis, Bill Burke, and Eric Martin showed when talking about their experiences during the past trip to pass out wheelchairs and help others. Hearing stories of how they changed lives in third world countries where people do not have access to medical care and the opportunity to have a mobility. This really inspired me. Hearing Bill Burke talk about an experience giving a wheelchair to someone that had been lying in a bed for years without being able to go outside, and seeing how something so small as just a wheelchair could give him so much happiness when he was able to wheel himself out to see the roses his wife had planted years prior. So thank you, Bill. I'm looking forward to being a part of this amazing group and help pass out wheelchairs in future trips. In closing, I'm grateful to be here today in the company of many amazing people that are always finding ways to help others. All of you are truly inspirational. Thank you.
Alright. So, now we'll do the introduction of the Rotarian. Needs no introduction at all. Who would like to?
President Gary, we have with us from the Dublin Club in the field of electrical contracting, past president, Bob Tucknut.
Yes.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Lisa Freitas, and I'm happy to introduce my husband, Chris. He's just hasn't signed his application yet, but hey, so that's a good thing. And he's joining our club, so congratulations and welcome.
Do him now, or? Yeah. We'll have a special gift. Okay.
John, stand up.
Taller than everybody.
Hello, everyone.
Hey, John. This is John Heverly, a friend of mine. He thinks he's heavenly, but he's not. He's Heverly. Anyway, he has a digital marketing company and he's interested in Rotary too. And we got to know each other playing poker, taking his chips and taking my chips. We reconnected at a Third Thirsty Thursday a couple months ago at the Cellar Door. And he said, who is this great fun group of people that you're hanging out with? I want to get to know them. So Third Thirsty Thursday is a great opportunity to recruit your friends, because that's kind of how he saw us and said, I'm interested in coming to check out Rotary. Welcome.
Welcome, John. Thank you.
I also have a guest today, and a lot of you will recognize Olivia Sanalong. She was a member of our group 2015, 2018, and she has been a Zone 7 board director since 2018. She's soon going to be our representative for East Bay Regional Park District, since she's running unopposed. So she'll resign her Zone 7 directorship, and that position will be appointed. And professionally, she, since 2018, has worked for an ad agency in San Francisco, and currently she is a sustainability consulting for Microsoft. So let's welcome Olivia.
Amador graduate. Amador graduate. All right, Bill Burke, come on up and introduce your guest, and we have a special recognition.
Thank you for an opportunity to introduce my son-in-law, Richard James, to many of you. Today, I'm pleased, as I have in the past with other family members, to provide for him to call herself. Now, you need to know Richard to know why I've really chosen this honor for you. Richard is retired from Microsoft, where he was director of operations for a number of years. What is it? Retired Microsoft executive do? He gives of himself to his community. A list of activities that he's been involved in is lately, but currently, he's the president of the Campo Reno Golf Foundation. That's the Barracuda Golf Tournament, the golfers who know about it. He's been active with that group for quite a number of years, serving as co-chair for recruiting volunteers for a number of years. He spent a number of years with the Northern California Boys and Girls Club, and many of those years as the chair of that board of trustees. In the process, each time they came up with a new program, he was first to volunteer. When they asked local business people to get in touch with their schools and to shadow a principal, he did that, which led to more than a 2-year involvement with his working as a teacher aide, as somebody who goes on field trips, all those kinds of things. And then to set up an IT class. These kinds of things just go on and on. I can recall when he had another project where he was attempting to have people find boys and girls that they could mentor. He had 2 mentors. One boy ended up in juvenile hall, which meant a 5 or 6 hour round trip every time he went to visit them. I'm pleased, proud to be able to present to my son-in-law, who's been in my life since 1975. I think the Paul Harris Fellow recognition. And with that goes a wonderful pin that you can wear whenever he goes to Rotary functions, because most other people won't know what it's all about.
Gary, you still want to do good, have fun, or no?
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah. Ricky, there's 2 guests. By Zoom, our own Larry Annis, insurance, and then Augie Horning in the dark. Taxing. I take it that's Augie Horning, is it not? Yeah. How do they put your last name on there? And what you do. All right. So we have a special phone that Ricky's prepared by Bill Burke's request. And our own Don Lewis.
Hello, fellow Rotarians. Today's song is Do Good and Have Fun. And have fun while you're singing it. Let's go.
We get standing when the work is done. You are the man who makes us we do good and have fun. We do good and have fun. We feel scholarships from a spirit from good and have fun. The world's greatest Rotary Club of Pleasanton.
Thank you, Bill. All right, our own Tom Fox, multi-decade successful realtor and international business. This isn't a commercial, really. You put it in fun. Also,
You want this?
yeah.
Take it away, Tom.
Okay, thank you very much, Ricky. Ricky's been very good over the last, I don't know how many years now, doing this video to let us know what is going on around the world in Rotary, that it is more than just our club here in Pleasanton. And while we do a lot of things, there's other things that are being done and proposed by Rotarians around the world, but they need some help financially. So just a reminder that we all need to give our part every year to Rotary International, as little as $25 and no upper limit. And so we need your checks to do that and try to do that before the end of the year. Thank you very much. Somebody invited her. Come on, everybody get involved. We go part. Welcome. Welcome.
Thank you, Gary. I'll just piggyback on what Tom said for a second. Every Rotarian every year. Last year we got 100%. Let's do that again. I looked at PNR's website this morning. They have a little chart on it. They're at 74% already for this year of every Rotarian every year. So I know that our club does not want to be beat by PNR. That's for sure. Okay, this is Christine Sevier, something like that. And I met her and then we had a conversation and she is going to talk about navigating senior healthcare choices. Okay, as our parents or even ourselves get older, what's best for us? You know, is it assisted care? Is it full-on care in a nursing home? Is it bring in somebody from the outside? Is it going to a public place? All those questions that we sometimes ignore until we get to the point where we have to face it head on. So here you go. Christine, take the mic with you. If you can stand right here so everybody can see you.
Scotch is best.
Scotch is best, as Brad says.
Got the power on? Here. Just hit next or tell me next and I'll make sure it goes. Oh yeah, got it. Here you go.
Now, if I stand here, can the Zoomers still see me?
Yeah.
Okay. So my name is Christine Sevier. I am the owner and founder of Creating with Hope. We are senior living advisors. So let me just tell you a little bit about my background. I have a background in psychology. I was a mental health counselor at John Muir Behavioral Health. I did a lot of intensive case management with at-risk youth all throughout the Bay Area. And then my grandfather came to me and said, "Hey, would you come alongside me and be the special needs co-conservator for your grandmother?" And I thought, sure. My grandmother had Alzheimer's at the time, and he was her primary caregiver. And I thought, of course, I can do this. I work at a psychiatric unit. Are you kidding me? I can manage Alzheimer's. So as soon as I signed those papers and went through the whole court process and everything was signed and sealed, he ended up getting end-stage renal failure and passed away shortly after. So in 2014, I became a caregiver overnight and I was in over my head. I stuck it out for 2.5 years. And I mean, when I say I stuck it out, hired the outside caregivers, agencies. I've had people come over, throughout the weekend. We adapted her house so she could live there independently on Papua, had a walk-in tub, all of the things, and we literally lived in the same community. So I was only about 3 blocks away. Then the caregivers wouldn't show up on the nights or a weekend, or God forbid during the holiday, forget it. So I literally had no life at all. I was a caregiver 24/7. And then she became non-ambulatory. And it was physically, I was in over my head. I couldn't do the job. So I had to look for some alternative care options for her. Plus, I was running out of money. I was paying for in-home care, $25, $30 an hour easily. So I did like most families would do. I called the big national companies. I won't say their names. I don't want to get sued. But they'll give you a list and they're not local. So I took the list and I went and looked and scoured a ton of places. Because like I said, she was 100% bedridden. Her food had to be pureed. So she really needed that expert level of care. I went and checked out a few places from this list and I was less than impressed. I mean, some of the, I Googled some of the addresses of these residential care homes, and one place was like pending foreclosure. And can you imagine? I would die. So I knew that the real data lived with the Department of Social Services. And back then, they didn't have everything online. So I went down to Clay Street in Oakland, got a list. I said, give me the 5 places that are closest to my zip code here. I ended up finding a care home called Deli's Care Home in Concord. What a blessing Deli was. But she literally took care of my grandmother, and I had hope hospice involved at this time. And hope hospice, like, Christine, 6 months. You have 6 months. I give you permission to get that help you need. So went to Deli's Care Home, and she wasn't advertised on the internet. She had no website. There was no way you would know about her unless you went and scoured the records at the Department of Social Services. And I knocked on her door, and of course, she was full. And she said, how did you find out about me? And I said, well, I looked through the Department of Social Services records, and you only had 1 infraction on your transparency records, and it was expired ketchup. So I said, let me go to the expired ketchup. So I eventually waited for her to have an opening for my grandmother at that time. And my grandmother lived 2.5 years, completely bedridden. Her food was pureed. Every time I went to check on my grandmother unannounced, her sheets were changed, her hair was washed, her nails were painted. And this is someone end stage Alzheimer's that literally could not communicate her needs at all. So Deli, if you're watching, you're still a blessing. So I ended up going back to work. And so let me just tell you what the senior living advisor like myself does. So basically what I do is I help families navigate care choices, whether it's assisted living, residential care, or even point them in the right direction for in-home care. And I provide this service completely free to families. I charge the communities that are worthy enough to be in my database a referral fee. So let me just give you a little bit of difference between, I'm going to touch on what the difference between independent, assisted, residential care, memory care, and then skilled nursing. The first 4 communities, I know a lot of communities will say, oh, life transfer in the community, or you can live here for the rest of your life. The first 4 are under the RCFE umbrella, Residential Care Facility for the Elderly umbrella, that's managed by the Department of Social Services. Skilled nursing is a Medicare benefit. You may need to qualify for Medicare to pay for there, but it's places that you would go, like Pleasanton Nursing Rehab after you get a surgery or something like that. So independent living right now in the East Bay, you're easily looking at like 4,500, actually 4,700 plus, with inflation and what labor is costing. A lot of the caregivers are demanding $20 an hour just coming into a lot of these communities, and they're getting it, and we should, because they work hard. Assisted living communities will typically look like this. They really look like the independent and the assisted. A lot of times buildings will just say, this is our independent side, that maybe it's not licensed under the RCFE umbrella. So, there's not much care there. Maybe there's a call pendant button in the bathroom or the main quarters. And then on the other side of the building, it'll be the assisted side where you build a care plan for your loved ones. And you can pay anywhere from $5,000 to upwards of $10,000 a month in some of these communities, because it really depends on what the care plan is. And some communities will charge based on the level of care, or an a la carte model, like a care point. And I always tell families, if you are on a fixed budget, be very careful looking at the a la carte plan, because you can go into one of these beautiful communities and be pointed to death and end up paying $25,000 a month. You have to pay if you needed someone to escort you to the dining room. So you really have to take a look at the admission agreement and check all of the little nuances of assisted living. So memory care. So if you have a mild cognitive impairment, or you have an Alzheimer's diagnosis, and you're in elopement risk, typically these communities will you'll have to go into the memory care side of the unit. That's a lock, they have a delayed egress on the doors. But they're really good with, if you have someone that's in that early onset stage, and they're, want to kind of still in that tactile phase where they want to kind of look around and they may be in elopement risk. Memory care, there's great memory care communities out here, and I will just give Sunrise a plug because they have 2 levels of memory care. They have like a higher functioning memory care, and then like extreme memory care where all your needs are being met. One of my favorite communities out here. But it can also be very expensive. And a lot of these communities are non-medical. Some of the larger facilities will have an LVN or RN on staff. It just depends on how many people, how much the building is licensed for to determine the requirement of having a nurse on staff or not. So the residential care model, a lot of people don't know, or maybe they don't trust the residential care model. These are also licensed and managed by the Department of Social Services. They have unannounced visits. They have to go through the same process as the large facilities. And I always tell families, unless you have buckets and buckets of money, when you can no longer ambulate or advocate for yourself, it is time to go into a smaller community. Why? Because there's a 2-to-6 ratio. There's typically 2 caregivers around the clock and 6 residents in each private room throughout the house. Which in my case was very important, because I needed to make sure that my grandmother didn't develop a skin breakdown, and that she was, turned and really taken care of, because that is really, really important. And I will say, for those 2.5 years that my grandmother was in that bed at that care home, she never developed a pressure sore, never. And Hope Hospice, they were like, "Who's giving such good care?" So she's amazing. And out here in the Tri-Valley, you're looking at about 6,500 if you're of moderate care levels, but there are much more affordable options further out. You can get some affordable options in Concord, Antioch, Pittsburgh, and some of these communities are owned and operated by registered nurses who are looking to only maybe work per diem 2 days a week, and they want to provide that high quality care. So here are my recommendations. Start the process early. If you know your loved one has a diagnosis and you eventually have to make this decision, don't wait for the emergency. Kind of identify who you like in the community, or get in touch with someone like me so I can give you a full assessment and what would be an appropriate fit for your loved one. Involve the prospective resident as much as possible. I always tell the families, if you're looking for an active community, go a couple of times, try the meals. If they have an event, go to the event. See if this is, a community that you could enjoy the easier half of your life in. Don't be overly sold on the attractiveness of the facilities. A lot of times I see families, they'll go in with the fancy chandeliers and the wonderful programming, and all of the beautiful amenities. Those are wonderful. It's like a cruise ship on land. I would move there. But if your loved one isn't going to participate or doesn't have the ability to engage in those activities, think twice, because it gets very costly and it could be isolated. They could be in their room for a majority of the day. Check the licensing records, and I'm going to show you my next slide so you can check that out, because you're gonna wanna make sure they don't have a history of offense or personal rights violations. Or another one that I don't like to see is if the caregiver isn't associated with the license, that means that person hasn't even been background screened. And if they get cited for that, I don't wanna avoid those. Narrow down a few options, again, check them out. Visit during mealtime. Obtain a copy of the admission agreement. I always tell the families, I like to know what kind of medical conditions you have to understand what your future care needs are. Because if you know, hey, my dad's 6'2", 240 pounds, he has degenerative disc disease or something, and he's going to need the Hoyer lift, make sure that community allows a Hoyer lift in their community or a 2-person transfer. All of that information will be stated in the admission agreement, so you really want to look that over. Understand the costs and services. Like I said, a lot of communities have a different billing system. Some will go based on the level of care, some will be a point system, and very few are all inclusive unless it's on that residential care model in a smaller setting. So here is, I build my entire business on checking licenses. I'm the only referral agency in the Bay Area that provides families with the transparency link from the Department of Social Services. I have some guys up in Washington who create a really cool database for me. So when you're getting that referral from me, from my database, you can check their records right there. But here's the process if you needed to do this on your own. So the Department of Social Services collects everything. So here is a horrible care home. Let's see if I can do this little, like, you see that? Citations, type A. So a type A citation imposes immediate health and safety risk. So when you see 15, 16 type A citations and they're on probation, you guys see that? Run. I'm telling you right now, run. And what's great about the Department of Social Services now that everything is electronic, you can go and read the exact nature of what that complaint was and what an LPA came into that community and found, and whether it was corrected or not. I just went over the type A citations, imposing the health and safety risk. Type B is typically paperwork if you don't have your paperwork in order. And then lastly, I want to talk about, because a lot of times families will end up hiring a caregiver in their home before they make a full transition to a supportive community. There's a difference between a domestic referral agency and a licensed home care agency. If you are looking for an in-home care provider, especially in California, make sure that they have that HCO, home care organization license, on their card, on their marketing material, because I see so many families out here, they'll hire the caregiver from a friend, that caregiver gets hurt, something happens, or they didn't get paid while they slept, or they had uninterrupted sleep. And California is very litigious, and caregivers know that, I can sue this guy I was here for 24 hours and he only paid me for 12. So be very careful, because I see a lot of families get stuck in a situation where now they have a lien against their house from the caregiver for the employment dispute, because you are technically the employer on record. You have workers' comp, insurance. I don't know if there are any insurance people, but you hire someone independently, you have to pay them fairly and have all the insurances like that. So that is the end of my presentation. I always like to keep it open for questions, because a lot of times folks will have questions. Does anybody have any questions? Yes.
Kind of an anecdote. Bill James, where everybody in former president, superintendent of school. He and his wife went into a upscale living, and lived there for 4 or 5 years. And then his wife died. At some point, Bill and his daughter put their heads together and realized that all of our charges had run its cost up to over $25,000 a month. And they found one of these home care places that had 6 people in it. He got wonderful care. He was everything, he actually got better care, and it was massive. So those little 6-person outfits, he said, are great adults.
Yeah. And I will also say, the Department of Social Services, they base the ratio on the larger communities based on, according to care needs. So you can have 16 independent adults that are, and one caregiver that's responding to call pendant buttons all throughout the day. Now, if you need somebody that, you know, they need their brief change and they're waiting for that person to have their call pendant responded to, you know, you have to think about that. And I have a lot of families who, if they need standby assistance in their apartments on that assisted living floor, they're paying for that privately. So you can eat, it's very common that families are paying 25 plus after a couple of months in one of these larger communities.
What's the best way to refer you?
So I left all of my information and there's actually some pictures of some care facilities over there, my contact cards, all that. And then I also have a really cool assisted living checklist that I've curated. If you happen to be out there and you're looking for places, take a look at my checklist on the questions that you should be asking. How long are your call response times on your call attendance? That's another good question that I should be asking. That's it.
Yeah, other than the skilled nursing, do you need your options listed, are they paid by Medicare or are they all private care?
So everything is pretty much private pay unless you are in a skilled nursing facility and need skilled care, which is typically like an ostomy bag, a tracheotomy, and we're talking high clinical need on the skilled nursing side. And I think Medicare pays for 100, 120 days or so.
I just read about Medicare.
Yes, so it is called, if you can qualify for Medi-Cal, which typically you have to be 120% below the federal poverty line, you can get what's called IHSS, in-home supportive services. And a caregiver from a registry from IHSS will come out. But I will also warn you that I haven't seen IHSS program give over 250 hours a week. So you still have to have somebody kind of else in place.
Under residential home care, I think you said 6 people per room.
No, 6 per house, 2 caregivers, yeah, 2 caregivers, 6 residents.
Thank you.
So, when I think about growing old, the average age is 120, that's what the Holy Scriptures tell us, so. Attitude, so 120, here we come. Anyway. But as I get older, I'm thinking, growing old is not for sissy. All right, Bill, we're gonna hit on the spirit run. Thank you.
So the Spirit Run is coming together finally, and I'm gonna make a few announcements about who's doing what, just to give them some recognition and also so you guys know what's going on. Jake has stepped up, and Jake is our liaison between our chair, which is Janine Henderson, who's a hired position, and the rest of the club. So he's kind of working with everybody over the whole thing. And then Gino Ashley has taken over the sponsorship committee, and working with him is Deanna and Marjorie. And
3 red badgers are gonna get their blue badge too.
And yes, we'll mention that as well. Mark Cannis is staying on the publicity committee, and he has, working with him, Jed Dooley, Grace Nash, Jim Hansen, and Pete McDonald is a question mark. Maybe we can just peer pressure right now. Okay, great, we got that taken care of. Okay, and then Manju Mishra is going to manage the volunteer list. She's not in charge of putting the volunteers together, but then making sure everybody's all checked in and everything on race day. And we're gonna bring one other person in to be determined to work with that. Ricky and Randy are gonna take care of banners, getting those hung up, taken out of our storage. Lee Carlson's gonna work as like a race day kind of site manager, maybe putting out fires whenever one will occur. And then a t-shirt manager, I'm not sure if we've wrapped this up yet. Oh, Clark has accepted. Okay, so Clark's gonna be our t-shirt manager. We will need a couple people to work with them on race day to pass those out. Dennis Clare is taking charge of registration. Kathy's gonna work with him. We will. Kathy, yes. And we'll probably need another, 4 or 5 people, so think about who wants to work on registration. Dick Stafford's doing the food and beverage, and he'll probably need 1 or 2 people to work with him on that. Sandra Lepley wants to be in charge of the kids run, but she won't be there that day, so we're gonna need a few people to work on kids run. Steve Van Dorn is our race award manager. He may need 1 or 2 other people on the team with him. I'm looking for a raffle coordinator. A raffle coordinator is somebody who's gonna get all the prizes together and work at that table. It'll probably take 2 or 3 people. Ginger and Robay did it last year, so obviously they're not here to repeat. If you know somebody or yourself that wants to do that, please see me or Ricky after the meeting. Our race announcers are gonna be Eric Martin and Brad Hurst. We are looking for a DJ. I think Steve's working on that, right? And at our information booth, we're gonna have a wild team. Joe Crossland, Bob Silva, Jack Brass, Bill Burke, and Jim Moore. I haven't even asked them. I just figured we'll put a chair there and they'll be happy to sit there. We want everybody involved. This is our largest fundraiser of the year, and we need total club engagement. If you're not gonna be there on October 30th, there are things that can be done before the event. So you can work on this race and still contribute to it without being there on race day. That's it. Thank you.
John, Bill? Thanks to Bill Burke, we have a whopping $31. Starting out. There you go. 723. 723.